I recently did a study on diversity in the high-tech industry, and it's a fairly sobering set of statistics that, that result from this. And one of the things that we discovered is people have a fairly delusional view of how their companies are doing with respect to diversity. Basically, when we asked people in this study, how progressive is your company when it comes to a workforce composition? A lot of women, a lot of minorities, a wide age gap, et cetera. And everybody in this study was like, oh, my company's the best. It's so good. 75% or more said, my company tips the scales. We're amazing. And then, you know, I did some research and I studied and I looked up a lot of, oh, I have a clicker. Thank you. See, people, I just figured I'll just roll with it. It's not there. Yeah, so here, you can see some studies. So these are the people who have a very inflated opinion of how well their company is doing in the high-tech industry. When I say high-tech industry, I'm talking vendors, the manufacturers, OEMs, channel companies, agents, master agents, distributors, all of you folks that work in our ecosystem. And they seem to think that their companies are doing great. Well, I hate to tell you, that is not reality. The reality is, and these are some of the numbers, that the high-tech industry compared to most other verticals out there lags woefully behind in workforce composition with regard to African Americans, with regard to Hispanics, and with regard to women. Those are three areas that they really lag behind. Also, for those minority groups that do work in the high-tech industry, they have a much harder time being in leadership roles. They're not making it into the ranks, the top ranks. I mean, you hear about the Ginny Romettis and the Meg Whitmans and all of that, but they're really an anomaly when it comes to running high-tech industry. And I'm not just talking about the CEO level. I'm talking about just getting into management, upper-level management at these companies. So, so it's a myth that companies are doing well. And I don't think it comes as a surprise to any of you that we read in the news all kinds of fairly disparaging stuff about our industry when it comes to diversity, when it comes to fairness, when it comes to inclusion. And so you can look at these statistics all you want and we can discuss them. But I just want to turn to these guys because they really know what they're talking about and say, what gives? Why is the high-tech industry lagging so much compared with other industries? And I'll throw that to any of you.
Well, so I'll take a crack at it, right? People do business with people that they know and like. It's no different when it comes to hiring practices. I'm going to hire my friend because I know my friend. I'm going to hire my friend because I like my friend. I don't think it's some nefarious plot, but ultimately, that's how it turns out being, right? If I'm not in that inner circle, then I'm not going to be the person that's tapped for that position. So I typically think it's just done by accident, right? And it's also one of those things that if something's not called to your attention, why would I do anything about it? I don't know if something's wrong if I don't know something's wrong. So it's fantastic that we're actually having this discussion because, hey guys, something might be wrong.
So Rokeya, you're at Microsoft. You know, do you see some of these statistics that we're seeing there? And what's the company trying to do about it? Not to put you on the spot, but I know that a lot of high-tech industry, the big players, the Silicon Valley players, the Redmond players, they are trying to make strides. So I don't want to sit here and say that we're failing because we're not trying. I think there is effort. It's just, I don't know if it's in the right place.
Yeah, I think that, let me fix this. No, I definitely think Microsoft is doing honestly a fantastic job at trying to change what that feels like and what that experience is for not only externals but internals. So in our numbers, I will say to you, are suffering. And it's very difficult because there's not a lot of people like myself and Graciela and Aaron in some of these workplaces at the top in these leadership roles. And so I feel like I'm privileged and honored to be in a position where I can influence those numbers. I can help other people see, you know, different opportunities and the ways that they can actually help grow innovation. And that's a very, very passionate area for me, and trying to make sure that our company is recruiting a diverse set of talent, you know, being involved. Like, for instance, I'm in the academic engineering strategy organization, and we just onboarded our first historical black college university at Howard in DC into our program, where we're now focused on growing that population, creating more opportunities for recruiting, giving more opportunities for internships and ultimately full-time positions.
No, that's great, and it's a great pivot to Graciela, who is an academic and works with students who are considering computer science careers, and potentially that could land them in the high-tech industry. Talk a little bit about some of the things you're doing, Graciela.
So myself, I'm a Hispanic woman, and I'm an underrepresented minority. So as a faculty, I felt myself very isolated. So I joined an alliance, which is called the Computing Alliance of Hispanic Serving Institutions. And through them, to give a good plug to Microsoft, one of my students actually got hired. So Microsoft does stretch out. There is some hope. We still have to do a lot of work.
There's hope.
But definitely there's hope. I work now in Chicago, Northeastern Illinois University. And through the alliance, through the leadership that we have in the Computing Alliance of Hispanic Serving Institutions, we actually, with Google, we have a new program coming up, which I'm part of. It's called Faculty in Residency Program, where now they're grabbing faculty not at the top institution. I work at Northeastern Illinois. It's not an Ivy League school. It's a state school. You have 50 schools like mine, probably across the board, although mine is more diverse. We're one of the most diverse schools. But there is hope. Google is actually doing this program to grab faculty from different and diverse backgrounds, bring them to Mountain View. So I'm going in June to Mountain View to better understand what are their needs, how to prepare better our students, and for them to understand our students and our perspectives as well. So I think that's an excellent example of how industry can reach out to academia. We both work together to try to increase the numbers.
It's like starting, one of the things is starting early. You know, we talk a lot about early adopters of technology, especially in the channel, and especially as we're growing emerging technologies, we have to start earlier inside of our recruiting model. And I know our EDU organizations are now starting to have those discussions, even looking at what high schools are doing for these, junior or these 11th and 12th graders. Like, are we providing opportunities for them to have shadowing early on, to expose them what technology is all about, to let them know that it's possible? And engineers aren't just people that work on the side of the roads.
Yeah, I know, Aaron, you have a very interesting story, and I think you sort of like stumbled your way into technology, 100%. If you will. Yeah, it wasn't your first choice, but it speaks to what Rokeya is saying about getting to kids early. Then now that you are in the industry, you see the importance of making sure that young people and minorities understand that there is a career path in the technology industry.
100%. I'll even take the example of my two daughters. I've got a 7- and 8-year-old daughter. We live in a pretty competitive schooling district. They're deciding whether those kids are going to be career paths as young as 3rd grade based on test scores. So if we're waiting to like the colleges or high schools, we are actively coming at a pretty late age to really get those guys engaged and really understand that there are opportunities out there, right? So there needs to be a concerted effort at a much younger age, to your point.
Well, let's talk a little bit about recruiting, because I think a lot of the burden for broadening the diversity efforts falls on the HR departments at a lot of companies, and so they're looking. Where can we find, a minority population? Where can we find more girls? Where can we find people of just different socioeconomic backgrounds? We haven't even talked about that, but that's a whole other issue when it comes to diversity. And I think it's tough if it only becomes the burden of the HR department, because part of my study was who really should be most responsible for making sure that diversity and the workforce is a strategic imperative. And it should be from the top down, as far as what my study resolved. But I mean, how do you feel about that? It has to come from leadership, does it not? Not just from the HR department saying we need X percentage of African Americans on our workforce, X percentage of Asian Americans, or whatever it is. It really needs to be more of a strategic goal. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. And it doesn't, we talk about like what this diversity elephant in the room, what it's all about. It's not just about people, right? It's about product. It's about making those things scalable for the marketplace, as our world is a melting pot. And if we don't build stuff that's going to be available and able to be used by everybody, then you're going to really reduce the amount of revenue that you can get from new product designs. How many customers, how many partners you can get, how many enterprises that you can do business with. So I absolutely agree that it lands just more. It's not just on HR. It's on leaders of our new product designs, and that's what we're really looking at in Microsoft. And we're using AI to do some of that.
No, that's a fantastic point, right? So when you and I did this a couple weeks ago at the CompTIA headquarters, the #1 thing that everybody kept saying is, oh, it's an HR function. It's a function of HR. No, it's a business imperative. I regularly sell myself as an African-American male who has unique experiences that tailor to the African-American community. You may want to talk to me about how do we penetrate that market because I may have insight that you may not have, right? So it's looking at it like how do we get those bottom line, like how do we make those connections to the top line and the bottom line, right? Make it a business imperative and not just a, oh, by the way, this feels good for me, right? So as long as we're able to connect the dots, because at the end of the day, business is in the business to make money, guys. I know it's still kind of early, but we're in a business to make money. So we need to make sure that we're showing how the business case for the diversity can make you money.
Yeah, that's why I've got this slide up here right now, is that, you know, this is the message to send. It isn't about quotas, like I said, it isn't about making sure that you have a certain percentage of everybody represented within your organization, which is what ends up happening when the HR department is running it all. But it's having the conversation needs to be, having a diverse workforce means more innovation, more viewpoints, more insights, and ultimately better product, better services, and hopefully more profit. So it's all a good thing. So I'll pivot here. We talked a little bit about recruitment. Now I want to talk about the other big problem that we found is even in companies that are doing a pretty good job recruiting a more diverse workforce, if their culture is not also inclusive to people, especially this is happening among women. So we're finding a lot of women, so this is a gender gap thing, finding a lot of women get hired at high-tech industry and they leave prematurely. They don't stay in these jobs for a long time because they get there and it's uncomfortable, don't be offended, it's like a bro culture kind of thing, and it's very hard for them to feel like they're included. And that, I'm sure, is the same case for a lot of minority folks. So you've got two pieces here. Yes, we're finding and we're recruiting minorities and women, but what are we doing to retain them once they get into the workforce? And I think that's probably the thing that doesn't get talked about enough. Anybody want to just dive into that one?
I'll jump in because I'm in academia. So we tried several models specifically for women collaboration, and getting them to work together actually works fairly well. I had a couple of young girls who went into industry, and the problem sometimes is that they don't adapt to that culture, to the environment in business, and also because they don't have the role models. So one of the biggest problems women have is that they don't find the role models, not only on the middle level, but at the executive level that can build that career path that Aaron is trying to build for his children, right?
Yeah, the role models are very important, I think. I mean, you've obviously come up through the ranks, and I'm sure you've had some mentors along the way that have helped. And now you, I know, have turned it around to be a mentor for others. Exactly.
Yeah, it's 100% about that reciprocity. Who am I trying to help, and who do I want to help me, right? So making sure that that's understood on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, mentorship, advisory is critically important. Learning from others, using that to grow. And you know, most people say, Rokeya, well, you know, is it that women only want, you know, female mentors or female advisors? And that could be so far from the truth. Like, I give credit to the mentors that I've had over my career, the sponsors that have stepped up to help me. They've been both men and women. And I honestly will tell you that it's been more men. That have done a lot of things for me throughout my career. So, and inside of Microsoft, specifically around what we're doing to help with that challenge or that opportunity is we have employee resource groups. We do this thing called Women at Microsoft. And so some of you all may have attended or saw some of the YouTube videos that feature some of the leaders in our company talking about what it means and what it feels like to be a woman, especially in technology. And we lean very heavily on making sure that we stay close to the community. So one part of my job is to really saturate the community that I'm in. I host, I have an online community group called Tech Rolls Half, and it's all about advisory inside of there and supporting each other and growing each other. And in that forum, it's not about anybody's color or ethnicity. It's about just being a woman, because that's where it starts.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So I wanted to keep with you here because we were talking backstage a little bit about what you called innovation bias. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about that because we hear a lot about unconscious racial bias. You know, people don't realize that they are, you know, I think it goes to what you said, Aaron. Even when people are doing the hiring within companies, they don't realize that unconsciously they're hiring the people they're more familiar with or the traits that they're more familiar with, and they're not thinking outside of the box. And so everyone's not a bad guy. That's sort of the message here. It's like, you're not, but people have these unconscious biases. And I know you're doing some stuff at Microsoft here, what you call innovation bias. I'm curious to hear what that's all about.
Yeah, it's just like what you said, Caroline. Most people think that when they hear the word diversity or they hear the word inclusivity, they think it's all about the person, the color, the gender. It goes much deeper than that, because really, when we really look at what diversity is that it's really additionally into the other things, the gender and the color. It's about the product type. It's about if that product really has a focus group, and if that focus group included a lot of diverse thoughts, and if the design of the product was really enriched with people of all over the world, people of different parts of the region, because you could have someone that's of African American descent that's from, let's just say Georgia, where I'm from, and then you can have a person that's of African American descent from California. Those are two different mindsets because of the area that they grew up in, the experiences that they were exposed to. And so when we're designing new products, when we're creating new channel programs, specifically, since we're at CP, these are the things that we have to think about when we want to adopt, when we want to really attract more diverse subset of customers and partners, is that we have to have a product that actually includes their point of view. Yep. And so, this is what I mean by when I say, bias innovation. Are you building a bias innovation? Are you building a bias innovative channel? And those are the things that we have to think about, and making sure that we are looking out for, making sure that the people that are creating our products are not just of the people that are just like us. Because if you just rolled out a product last year and you're doing a new release, or you're changing it, but the same people that designed it in the beginning are the same people that's giving you your second version. Yep. You think that's going to be very different? It's not going to feel different. The user experience is going to be the same. And ultimately, I'm most likely probably certain that your numbers are only going to increase maybe 5 to 10%.
No, we got to mix things up, absolutely. So Graciela, I want to ask you, because your university, you were telling me earlier, is largely minority, correct?
Yes, it's a Hispanic
and so I'm curious, so as a computer science professor, how excited are your students to get into the high-tech industry? Are you hearing any pushback, like, I don't want to get into that industry, it's all white guys, or it's not friendly to my community? Or just give me a sense of the vibe among your students.
Where I work, it's a very diverse, although it's a Hispanic serving institution. 30% of my students are Hispanic, and that's one of the reasons I'm there. We have students from social economic backgrounds that are very diverse, low-income, first-generation students. And there's many challenges that they have. Right now, as Aaron does, I work with them to build a pathway. And they are very excited to go into the tech industry. When I mentioned them that I wanted to go to Google, and that Google was going to train me, and I was going to come back and train them so they can get internships in Google, and not only Google, but the training could potentially help them get a job in the tech industry, they are very excited. But on the other hand, they're also worried that they go into the right industry. My students are they have a family, they have a job, and they study. They want to have a balanced life. They want to have a life outside of work. That's very important to them. What does the company provide? Any employee resource group, events, sports. So they're not only looking at the tech job and the money, they're also looking at the benefits overall that the company provides. But they are very excited. The problem is that once they get in, how do you keep them excited?
Yeah, I think retention is the big takeaway here. I think companies have stepped up. There's been so much bad publicity in the tech industry. They've stepped up and they're trying to do a better job, but I don't think that they may be recruiting better and hiring better, but they haven't figured out the inclusion bit just yet, and that's something for everybody to work.
It's very hard, because even when I came to teach at Northeastern, I had to change my way of teaching. Because I have to include culture. I have students from all over the world. I have students from Africa, from Europe, from Australia, from England, from Canada, different backgrounds. I have students they worked in the IT industries. I have students who just got out of college, and this is their 4th year in college, and I'm teaching to them. So there's a lot of, when you talk about inclusion, although it's a very, very hard, it consumes resources, and it's a very big challenge.
Okay. I think we have run out of time. I just want to give you all a chance to have a final parting shot here, but where do you think we'll be in 5 years, Aaron?
Hopefully a lot better.
Good. Me too. Graciela?
I'm just hoping the numbers will go up. I don't want the numbers to go down.
I think we will be just fine, because everybody in this room will do their part day by day, we will make a change, and we will increase the amount of people that we hire that are designing product, that are servicing our customers, and that are giving us feedback, because that's probably what's most important.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give my panel a great round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you.